Hi guys, I'm Woodcraft Hamster, and I thought I'd do a final video about the Kuksa that I've been carving. Now, as you can see, it's now pretty much dry. Well, it is dried out. I've done a little bit of sort of detail carving on the handle just to make it, just a little bit less plain. Inside the bowl, fully dried out, really quite smooth. Few tool marks in there that you can probably just pick up on the camera there. I've left a nice little flat patch on the bottom so that it will stand upright, and I've been debating on how I'm going to finish this. I was going to leave it just as a sort of tooled finish on the outside and a smooth finish on the inside. I've actually decided, I've changed my mind on that, and I'm going to sand the whole thing, and then I'm going to give it a sort of an oil and beeswax finish. So really what I've got here, I've got a bit of 80 grit sandpaper, some 120, some 220 and some 320. And all I'm going to do, I'm just going to spend a little bit of time sanding this down, smoothing it out. I'm not going to bore you on the camera by just having you sit there watching me sanding this down. So what I'll do, I'll make a start on this, and I'll come back once it's finished, show you the final thing once it's sanded, and then I'll give you a quick run through of how I would oil these. Okay guys, so I thought I'd take a very quick break and show you the end of sort of stage one of sanding with the 80 grit sandpaper. Hopefully this is picking up on the camera reasonably well for you. It's now fairly smooth, certainly a lot smoother than it was before. All the tool marks have now been taken out, barring the marks from the sandpaper itself. And what I'm going to do, I'm basically just going to carry on working through the grades. I'm not going to bother coming back each time, and I will come back once we're ready to oil and wax it. So here we have the finished Kuksa. Now, as you can see, hopefully on the camera there, I have finished the sanding. I've gone all the way down to the 320 grit. And it's come up quite nicely, to be honest. I'm quite pleased with it. You can see now that, especially since sanding inside the bowl, and hopefully that's picking up on the camera, the grain within the bowl is showing up a little bit better. There's a nice little knot on the front here. Some people like this kind of thing, some don't. I quite like it. Gives it a little bit of character. But, everything, all of the edges, really nice and smooth down now. I'm quite pleased with the way this handle's turned out. I wasn't really sure what I was going for. It just kind of evolved. But you can hold it sort of like this with two fingers. You can sort of wrap one finger around one side, etc. Just different ways of holding it, which are nice and useful. What I'm going to do, guys, I'm going to bring you indoors in just a second, and I will walk you through what I do in terms of final finishing, in terms of oils and wax for something like a small Kuksa like this. And we'll take it from there. Right guys, so last couple of stages. Here again is the finished Kuksa. I've done nothing to it since the final sanding. And what I'm going to do, the way I tend to finish a piece of woodwork like this, especially if it's going to be used for food use, I will normally oil it. And what I'm going to use in this case is almond oil. You can use any food safe oil, olive oil, walnut oil, tongue oil, even things like vegetable oil. I prefer almond oil for something like this because it's quite a light coloured oil, and it won't darken the wood too much, but what it will do is help pick up some of the grain in there. Now there are lots of ways you can do this. A lot of people just take cold oil and rub it straight onto the room temperature wood. That's absolutely fine. There's no reason you can't do that. But what I have found, and this is through sort of experimentation and some advice from other people online, is that if you heat up the wood and the oil first, what will happen is the oil will soak in more so than it would as if it was cold. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put this on a baking tray. Hope you can see that here. And what I tend to do is actually put the piece of wood on either an offcut of wood, or in this case I'm using a wooden spoon, and I'm just going to drop this in the oven. You can't quite see because it's out of shot, and that's at about 125 degrees, and I'm just going to leave that in there for a few minutes, just so it heats up until it's hot to the touch. Doesn't need to be baking hot, and to be honest, you don't really want that to happen. So you want to be able to pick it up. It's going to be hot in your hand, but not too hot to handle. Normally I would take a little ceramic dish and put the oil in the oven with it. For some reason I can't find my little dish at the moment, so I'm going to drop it onto a frying pan, only about, I don't know, a couple of tablespoons worth probably. You don't need a lot. A little bit of this oil goes a long way. And once that starts to warm up, I'll just put the hob on. I'll get that oil to warm up. Just, again, doesn't need to be hot. Certainly not frying temperature. You need to be able to dip a cloth, or in my case a piece of kitchen paper, into it and be able to wipe it on without burning your hands. But it just needs to be warm enough so that it helps penetrate the wood, and it will get sucked into the wood due to the heat of the oil and the heat of the wood. Now, from my perspective, this is probably one of my favourite ways of oiling. It just means you get really good penetration, and it works really, really well. But what I'll do, I'll just pause the camera for a second while all this is heating up, and I'll come back when we're ready to apply. Okay, so the wood itself is nice and hot. As I say, I can hold it, I can touch it, it's not burning me in any way, but I can feel the heat in there. The oil also, which hopefully you can see there, is nice and hot in the pan. It's not smoking, it's not so hot that I'm going to burn myself. And really what you want to do is just take the whatever it is you're oiling, whether it's a spoon or a Kuksa like this, take some of the oil and just very generously apply it onto your wood. Now at this stage you kind of want to just smother it, to be perfectly honest. There's no such thing as too much oil in this case. I do know people who will take woodwork like this and actually submerge it in a bath of oil for sort of several hours so that it penetrates. You can do that, there's no problem doing that whatsoever. It's not something I do just because it's the logistics involved can be a little bit of a pain, but if you've got the ability and the desire to do it, then certainly there's no reason why not. And again, hopefully you can see on the camera there, this is the outside. Instantly we've got a colour change that will lighten off slightly as it dries, but if I flip it over to the bowl, obviously you can see there's a stark difference there. And what I'm going to do when it comes to doing the bowl, I tend to put quite a lot of oil in there because it does need to penetrate. So again, instantly, as soon as that oil touches the bowl, we've got an instant colour change, and it's picking up, all the inconsistencies and all the bits of the grain in there are now being picked up. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to completely smother this all with another layer of oil, and I'm basically just going to leave it for a couple of hours. What will happen is the oil will gradually soak in. Where you can see it's got a really nice sort of shiny texture at the moment. As the oil starts to penetrate in, it will lose that and it will become a little bit more matte, which is what you're looking for. And once I've done that, I'll probably give this 2 coats of oil today, and then what I'll do for your benefit, I'll cut and come back to this either this evening or tomorrow morning, and what we'll be doing is wiping off any excess oil that hasn't penetrated, and then I'll be giving it a very quick beeswax finish. And I make my own finishes, and I use a sort of a beeswax and almond oil sort of paste, which I make up myself. You just basically take a ratio of 2 parts beeswax to 1 part oil, pop it in a container in the oven, let it melt, take it out, let it cool down, and it will basically turn into a very sort of thick, quite hard paste. And you can either heat that back up and apply it as I'm doing here, or you can just use a little bit of elbow grease and rub the sort of the hard paste in until it penetrates. But again, that's pretty much done for now. It's still quite warm, so obviously still soaking in. I will come back to this with you guys very shortly, and we'll do the final step with applying the wax. Right guys, down to the final part. So here is the finished Kuksa. This is the oil finish now complete. That's a nice protective layer with the almond oil on there. Hopefully that's picking up well enough on the camera. There's a nice shine to it, and to be honest, I could leave it just like this and it would make not a great deal of difference. I'd probably have to put a few more coats of oil on just for it to really penetrate. But you know, this would be fine if it's just going to be for general use for things like water and stuff like that. You could probably even get away with things like coffee and hot liquids in here as well. But what I'm going to do, I'm just going to add a layer of my own beeswax finish. This is what it looks like once I've made it. Hopefully you can see that it's quite a hard, solid substance. Depending on how I make it, sometimes it's a little bit sort of tackier and more like a very thick paste. But what I've done, I've got another one of these that I've just popped into the oven, which I'll take out now. Hopefully you'll be able to see on the camera without me spilling it, but that is the liquid version. Usually I put it on somewhere between the two, but you know, as I say, you can put it on solid like this. You just scrape a piece out and rub it on, or you can do what I've just done just for the sake of easiness, and all I get is like a nice lint-free cloth, dip that in, and all you're looking to do is just very, very gradually just work it into the wood. You don't want to put it on too thick because you need to buff this afterwards, and if you put it on too thick, you're just smearing away layers and layers of beeswax afterwards. And again, a small amount of this does go a really long way, so you don't need to be putting loads and loads of it on there. The benefit of the homemade stuff is that it, you know, you can melt it and let it set, melt it and let it set multiple times, you know, pretty much as often as you want. If I make pretty small batches, as you can see here, so it doesn't, you know, I only do a small amount of it, but you can make it in a sort of a ramekin or a glass jar or something like that as well. I will do a video on how I make it, which I'll probably do over the next week or so, so that will be, I'll put that up on the channel as soon as I get a chance. But again, I'm just going to speed through this footage, just so you're not watching me doing this repeatedly, until I've coated the whole thing, and I'll come back and kind of show you what it finally looks like. So there you go, hasn't taken long at all. Now if you could sort of be here now and actually feel this, you can see obviously a really nice sheen on here, and that goes around the whole way, inside the bowl, outside the bowl, round the handle and everything. It's got a very slight tacky feeling, and that's obviously the beeswax, which has got that kind of waxy texture. What I'll do, as it cools down, it will set a little bit harder. Once that's happened, all I'm going to do is I'm just going to give it a little buff with a clean cloth that's got no wax on it. You will get some of the wax coming off on the cloth. Let's see if I can give you a quick example of that now. So yeah, you may just be able to see on that cloth there's a little bit of waxy residue, and again, I don't know if the camera's going to pick this up enough, but you can see that side there that I've just buffed. It's got a really nice high shine on it, and it's now, because I've buffed it, it's lost that that kind of sticky feel, but you've got a nice sort of smooth shiny wax coating. The other side there still got that coating on it, ever so slightly different. Hopefully you can sort of pick up on that. It's not quite as shiny because the wax hasn't been buffed out yet, but basically that is it. That is how I do my my wax finishes. So I hope that was useful, guys. Comments and questions in the box below. Happy to answer any questions if you want a bit of advice, if you want to make this stuff for yourself. Hit subscribe and like if you would like to see more, and I hope you'll all join me next time. Thanks, guys.